Hello.
Hey, we're back.
Hello, welcome back to Moral Relatives. I'm Charlie,
I'm Dan.
and we're going to get back into creation.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Take me to creation.
All right. I think we left off last week with the fall. So um, after the fall, what do you think about the fall? The fall being eating the apple.
I think a lot of things. So, kind of like I was referring to last time, the fall kind of refers to the descending of prime into matter. That's the fall of man, in my opinion. And I think, yeah, the being in the duality and malaise and all of that, like opening your eyes to the potential for choice.
For choice. Okay. Let me ask you this. You kind of said that we have fallen into something. When I was looking this up and looking at some other authors to kind of talk about the fall, one of the things struck me, and it was from Thomas Merton, um, and one of the things he says after the fall, we were ashamed, and that ashamedness is symbolic of our inability to accept ourselves as we are, and then we call that original sin. And he goes a little further. All right, this is the part that I want to kind of talk to you about. He says, we are perfectly united to the Spirit of God, and we broke that. All right, the Spirit of God. Keep that in mind. This causes our body to separate from our soul. So it's not so not so much our soul is in trouble, but our body's in trouble, and that becomes symbolized by a little bit later. Adam was happy in the garden because he had everything, and taking care of it was easy. And then after the fall, taking care of it became a burden, and his body was going to suffer from that. So, what do you think of that idea of original sin? I want to go back to your thing about prime. I want to kind of understand that more.
Well, prime is only divisible by itself and one. So we say God is prime because it's divisible by itself and then comes back to one.
Where do we fit into that, though?
Well, we are the God divisible.
What do you mean by that?
We're the divided God. And the objective is to like times ourselves by the one to return to prime. If you want to kind of mathemagic.
Okay, so I think what Merton's trying to say is that that's our soul. We want our soul to get back to God, and unfortunately, since we separate our body from God in this, and we're ashamed, and we're the scripture says that man, you will toil because of this and work the land and so on, and women you'll suffer through childbirth, and you can kind of look that up in the beginning of Genesis. But so our prime is our soul.
It's the soul, like complete unified God source. You know, people have a lot of names for it. The Brahman versus we are the Atman, Atman.
Mm-hmm. From
Hindu.
Hinduism, yeah. All right. So I guess my question is, because of this separation of us from God, a lot of it has to do with our body, and that gets into that whole concept of our sexuality and our gender. And I thought we were going to talk about that in terms of now we're ashamed. We're ashamed of our sexuality. We're ashamed of our gender. You're ashamed of who we are because of this original sin. And I think there's a lot of things we can kind of say about that. Where do you want to go with that?
Okay, back up a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, so my idea of like sin is like in trigonometry you would abbreviate the sine wave SIN, and what the sine wave refers to is the formula which allows a wave, like a frequency, that a common frequency that you would have up and down, to happen, and it's that frequency that is the prime degrading into this form. And then you also think about laundry's done. You always think about okay, so if I had a visual for it, but I'll put it up. But it's essentially it's a circle, right? And then you have, and that's the Earth. And then you have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And along the year, the sun rises up and then reaches its peak at the Tropic of Cancer, and then at the equinox in Libra, it goes back and forth between the good and evil, the balance of Libra, and then goes down into when the sun dies in winter, and then it rises again, and that creates the frequency wave. It's us getting trapped in like the beginning. It starts beginning of chapter 2. It says that God completed his work and then rested, and I think that implies Chronos, time, right? Sin, Saturn, Satan. These are like terms that are kind of cohesive because they represent this, like, now we're stuck in this matter, but at the same time there's this this gift of like we were eternal, but now because of our finiteness we get to die, and it's not necessarily like so horrible that like now we're not trapped here forever. We get to reunite with God. It's
Right.
actually kind of a cool spin on it if you think about it.
Well, that's
The opportunity to go back to source. Now we're not just stuck in the time thing.
that's the whole point of the story.
Right.
You know, to get back to the garden. Our goal is to get back to the garden because in the garden it was all good. So let me understand this.
Okay.
When you talk about this, you know, Capricorn and Cancer and this wave, do you think that, let's look at that as our lives. So do our lives have high moments and dark moments and high moments and dark
It's
moments?
essentially the arc of like the hero's story. It has the same kind of arc, you know? There's like this call to action in Aries. Aries means arise. It's the ram, you know, it's that ram into, you know, Abraham was the ram, right? And then you get into, you know, more Taurus, which is like you would be Moses was represented by the bull. They were worshiping the bull in his time, right? So like it's all astrologically linked as well. Like there's, and that's just kind of a representation of how time has these seasons, and there are these signs for these seasons, and you're here to decode them essentially.
Okay, so using that understanding and that philosophy, are you okay with original sin? As you see the world today, do you recognize that there is sin, and there had to be an original sin? There had to be a start of that sin.
Yeah, I think the consequence of freedom is the good and evil, and you know, us being born with original sin is more not like a curse, but a possibility. It's like the potential for you to go this way or that way.
Well, if we're not born with it, then our soul is already saved. So what's the point?
Right, exactly. Well, that's the whole fall from perfection, so you have to reunite, and we get to play the game of reunite with God, and God wanted to play that game of reunite with myself, because the main like focus of most philosophy ultimately is know thyself.
Right.
And you can even, you know, make that into what Jesus said is that I am, you know, like you are the thing happening, so focus on that.
Right. So
Not in a selfish way, but in a like you're the microcosm. So what can you learn?
So do you think that there's a lot of connections there between religion and what would you call your philosophy? More of a
Philosophy school.
philosophy. Okay, so religion and that philosophy. Um, so I think there's a lot of connections there. Um, how do we? How I know in my tradition, my ultimate goal is to get back to the garden to save my soul, and the way that I'm kind of called to do that is through this idea of love.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your way of having to do that?
All right. So I want to get back to this word ashamed.
Okay.
All right. So if you put a in front of a word, it's like the antithesis of the word, right? So basically, we found ourselves without shame, without humility anymore. It's the humility to recognize good and evil and then choose good, but then you get the shame, the ashamed, whenever you do the bad thing. Shame is like the good version of it, if you will. Like to have that humility to recognize that it's not all about you.
Oh, okay.
Ashamed is when you kind of make yourself the center of the universe, as it were.
Right.
Or like your
And
actions don't matter to the other things, and that's sin essentially is how you would define it. Probably.
but isn't it true that you've said to me that we're kind of our own gods? So isn't that making us the center of the universe? Isn't that making us the center of everything? Is there no greater power that calls us to getting back to the garden like that I keep talking about?
Yeah, we're the fractal version of it. We're not the thing. We're not the prime. We're the division symbol.
So we are trying to get somewhere.
Yeah. Life is all about action. We're human beings because being is the word we are. Not human is just because it represents that we are light and matter, hue and man. But we're beings is what we are. And that's what love essentially gets to is action, not like feeling.
Right. Okay, so if we as a human race know this, why is there so much sin and destruction in the world? Why do we fight against it so much? Right? If there's this centeredness of being of yin and yanging, you know what I mean? If there's this centeredness of that, why do we always choose the dark side instead of heading towards the light? Is it easier?
Yeah, convenience.
Just convenience.
Yeah. I mean, look at the world today. Like, if there's a convenient way versus a good way, what do people take?
Take the road less traveled?
No, not so much.
Not so much?
No, they take the highway.
Okay, so the easy way, not the road less traveled.
Right. Because people hate to, for some reason recently, choose and navigate and understand. Like, I have this joke idea, and it's basically because we didn't have a special board up for a little while, people were like freaking out because they were like, wait, what are your specials? Because they couldn't think of what to order. It's like, get what you got last time that you liked. Why do you need me to tell you what is good or not? Like, there's all those flavors you could choose from, but they hate the illusion, or they hate the like actual idea of choice. They want the illusion of it. They want to be told what to do secretly, and for some reason, I just don't get that. Like, that's my
that's pretty interesting
opposite.
Because one of the things I've said to my students a lot, especially if they did something wrong and they knew it was wrong, is exactly that. You know this is wrong. Why are you choosing to do it? You know that's again, you're causing chaos. But why do you continue to choose to do that? Right? And I just look at the world and I see, people doing crazy bad things. And I'm going, why? You know that's not good. Why do you keep choosing to do that?
Clout.
Clout.
Yeah.
Clout, define clout. Just
like fame, glory, riches, whatever. Like they're,
making themselves greater than
whatever their little, what we would call evil thing that motivates them. They want to be the pinnacle of something, but like they don't. That's separating themselves from the whole. Every time we try and,
All right. So
that makes sense.
yeah, a little bit, but
I don't know where I'm going.
we talked about. I think we even talked about a little bit last week about um, creating others. You know what I mean? Like bringing new life into this world, right? So God kind of gave us a plan with that, and there's a way that happens, and we tend to mess that plan up. We're always putting other things into it. Like just recently in the news this week, I think, the news was saying, kind of tongue in cheek, one of the oldest people were born this day because they had their sperm and egg frozen for the last 8 years or 10 years, whatever it was. I don't know how many years it was. And now how many years? 30 years? 30 years that it was waiting to be birthed, I guess, put back in the womb, I guess, to allow it to be birthed. Why do we if our job is to create so that we can help others show love and get back to the garden, why do we always mess with it? Why are we always trying to manipulate that? Any ideas? Do you think we don't manipulate that?
No, we definitely do. And, I've always been kind of like a tree hugger in that sense of like how far is too far of like industry before it's or is even like all industry rejection of nature, to a certain point, or just in general, like are tools good?
Tools are good, yeah. I mean,
like
tools help us.
The bad with the atomic bombs and the
yeah, but atomic is okay because that helps us. That could give us energy. If we can harness energy, we can help a lot of people, right?
But it comes with the bomb.
But isn't that the dark side of it? Again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. We know the right thing to do, and we choose not to do it. So we know atomic energy is a good thing, but someone somewhere in some closet says, "Hey, if we blow this up, we could hurt a lot of people." Why does someone do that? Why do people allow that to come down, enter the system? Is it because of original sin? Is it because of Adam and Eve? That's what I want to bring it back to. Adam and Eve, they felt ashamed, right? As you said. And because they felt ashamed, their body and soul became separate, and they had to take care of their body. And I think you just said that. People want to get ahead for themselves.
Right. We struggle with the idea of and we touched on it last time too, like the survival and the legacy of our genes. And that's still just as much a part of us as us wanting to be a good person, and that urge or feeling guilty for doing something bad. Those urges are simultaneous in us always, man the animal and man the God. That's the story of Jesus is God became flesh, and because of him we get to be like that too.
Again, kind of showing us the way. If someone said to me, what's that one thing you can hang your hat on with Jesus, and it's love one another. Love one another. And you look at all the things that Jesus said. Getting back to that concept of loving one another, and God gave us that too, and we know that, and that's a good thing. But we still choose to do the bad. I just watched this show on TV. I won't name it, but there was just a lot of bad going on there. People taking advantage of other people within that show, almost making it commonplace. And I don't think it's that commonplace. What?
Zabbatai Zeti Zebetianism.
Zebetianism?
It's like this idea that you got to bring about the second coming by creating such a terrible world that God would have to come back and save us. So they put darkness and evil and stuff into the world.
Interesting. I've never heard that
If you
before.
look for it, it's out there more than you might think.
Really? Well, that brings me to in our Easter Vigil liturgy.
I might have pronounced his name wrong, by the way.
Okay, but in our Easter Vigil liturgy, there's this prayer, and because we think that's Jesus. Jesus is bringing us back. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he did.
We've got the solution. We just have to put ourselves into the right vein to make that happen. But so in this prayer called the Exaltet, it says, and I love this line. It says, "O necessary sin of Adam, such great a fault brought for us such a Savior." O necessary sin of Adam,
Right.
brought for us such great a Savior. So what you're saying is,
We just
through
broke
this
the seed
concept
up.
of septinism.
Oh, yeah. No, let's not promote it.
Okay, I'm not promoting it. I don't think.
Yeah, I know. But like what you just said, you just broke it open. Is like this is the dance that God allowed Adam to sin necessarily so that we could have the opportunity to find the way back to him.
Right, and we do that by creating.
It's the whole dance.
We do that by creating others, right? Why? So I guess my question is, why do we mess with that so much? Why do we mess with that creating others? There's so many things that you can kind of talk about, in terms of that. People creating others outside of marriage, people creating others forcefully, people creating others with the manipulation of science, people creating others, almost and only accepting the perfect one, as they see perfect. If God put us here to create, and I think we talked about that last time, that we are creators. One of those things we're supposed to create is others, so maybe that one of those others becomes that one Gandhi or that one Martin Luther King or that one whomever. What? Or that one perfect person to show others the way. I could think of lots of people that I could name that did little tiny things, that Dorothy Day, Rosa Parks, Oscar Romero. I mean, all these people that have done great things because they were born, and we allowed that to happen, But why don't we let that just happen naturally? Why do we get ourselves? And the reason I say this is because of this, Charlie. I say this because yes, everyone who's created has a possibility to be good. I get that, but why do we think we have to mess with it? It's already there. We know it's there.
But messing with it is being. That's the dance that we have to, you have to have a misstep, because that's how you learn.
Okay, I hope you zoom in on my face then, because my face gave you a look of like...
Yeah, but I hope you zoom in on my words, because you have to dance and make bad steps and learn the way. The only way to do it is by doing, and anybody who has a craft will tell you that the lessons were great, but actually sitting in the studio and getting their hands dirty with whatever it is how they learned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely know. Yes, I definitely understand that. You gotta, if you want to learn how to fix a car, you gotta get your head in the hood.
With the earth.
But okay, so that gets back to this idea of how much do we do that? How much do we push that envelope? Do we push that envelope all the way? I don't know what all the way is, but do we push that envelope all the way? When do we cross the line? That line of, gosh, I don't want to, I'm going to use this word, I'm going to use this word, maybe other people wouldn't, that line of decency to a line of indecent. When do we cross that line? And how does that relate to this concept of our goal of
I think
and
I
our
have
soul?
a pretty easy definition for when it becomes indecent is when it becomes imposed upon somebody else. As soon as it's not just your thing, as soon as it becomes somebody else's thing too, that is becoming indecent.
Okay, that's a pretty
You know,
fair estimate of that.
and like we could be nuanced and don't get offended. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm like actually talking about like hurting somebody else's,
Well-being,
well-being, property, chances for well-being,
opportunity, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that goes back to I think what you said earlier, how I don't know your exact words, but I'm going to try to paraphrase it. Where you kind of said, we want to get ahead, we want to be the one, we want to. What word did you use? Use a better word than that. I forget. You can go back and look at it.
Yeah, we all just want to be like, the best at our field, right?
No, not the best at our field, but you said even like we want to be number one. We want to be the God. The God of whatever we are the God of. Because
At the expense of making everybody else not,
yes,
which is that's where the problem lies.
yes, that's
Like they also get to do that too.
So one of the things that amazes me about this discussion so far is that I really didn't think that you had a really deep belief in the concept of sin. I really thought that you were more of a type of person who was kind of, let live, kind of, que sera, sera. More than wow, there are really terribly bad people here who sin. Really, I didn't think you. Tell me, why do I have that feeling about you?
I don't know. I think I've always been one of my attributes is calling out injustice, I feel, and smelling the bleep this word. So, I don't know. I feel like I've always had a pretty decent moral compass as well, and I think like what you're referring to probably is that I'm not really bothered by what people do when it's not actually hurting other people or themselves.
Okay.
But I do really, really care, even in weird, nuanced ways, like advertising is something I always get really upset about because I care about how people are like being attacked by this negative thing, and I will always call that out, like
all right, so
avid anti-imperialist, anti-globalist.
Right. I'm glad you said. I want to go back to your beginning statement where you said you're the kind of person, and correct me if I say this wrong. You're the kind of person who, as long as no one's hurting anybody else by doing what they're doing, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to just let them be who they are.
Who am I to say?
Okay, here's my comment about that. I truly believe that when some people do some things, it destroys society. It destroys family, which is the root of society, right? And it also hurts others. I don't think people live in a vacuum. So I think that.
But like, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about when people do things that are immoral and people don't say anything about it. That destroys others. That destroys family. That destroys society. Mm-hmm. If we lower the bar on society, the bar is going to continue to become lower and lower and lower. What you didn't grow up in I'm trying to think of. I grew up in a time where, there were certain things that were taboo, right? And then all of a sudden they became, it's okay, right? But no, they're still taboo. But people say, no, it's okay. But I don't think you grew up in a generation where there were things that were taboo. I don't think the bars come very low in your generation as it comes to mine.
Let's break a word. The word taboo. What are you ashamed of?
What am I ashamed of?
Right. That's
In
like
that's a
the
pretty
word
good-
taboo is a subject we should be ashamed to talk about, and it's also an excellent tool to shut people up about things.
Okay.
And it's also
Okay, I'll tell you one thing.
unexplored is just land that you could normalize and explore. And I hate the word normalize nowadays, but like you can go to some place that you thought was once scary and realize, oh, this is actually my favorite place. I just
Right.
never gave it a chance until I looked there. And that's exactly what taboos are. And some of them are destructive. Like, I'm not saying blanket statement taboos are good, but I think you got to look at them. You can't just say, don't look over there.
Well,
That's,
but see, but when we do look over there, that I think that's when it affects other people.
no, I think what happens is with taboos is those who want to look over there go wander over there.
All right, I'm going to give you an example. You said give me an example
Taboos come into your, you know,
into your
into
circle. Sure.
schools, for instance, whatever.
Your circle, wherever your eyes, whatever. All right, I'm going to give you kind of an example. All right, modesty in the way one dresses, right, male or female. I think that's a really important thing because when you're immodest in your dress, it says something to others. And I think of my grandkids. I think of those little guys there that look at that. So much so that they have like a little code word for when someone's dressed inappropriate, to not look that way. I forget what the little code word is, but I'll remember it and then I'll tell you. You can write it in there. But they have a little code word because their parents don't want them to think that that's normal. That's not normal.
Here's my thing about what was the word? Immodest.
Immodest.
Is that what the word was or not? Yeah. Anyway, who's the one being not modest? Is it the guy gawking? A little bit, maybe.
That is usually the argument.
Well, it's not usually the argument. It's the exact correct argument is that, like, we were all once naked, and it's not shameful because we're all underneath these silly clothes that we just use to represent our personalities, which are more separation from God, Like, it's all silly to be shameful, like us perpetuating the idea that like they're sexual automatically to be naked. That's the problem. No, maybe
No.
a little bit.
No.
Maybe that body that you're so ashamed of is the same body that can create life and gives birth. And is that like a sexual moment, more sexual than her having?
I don't know, but I will go.
breasts?
I will go back to what Merton said. After the fall, we became ashamed, and he says this is symbolic of our inability to accept ourselves as we are. Right. So here's my problem. Do people push that envelope of modesty? I'm just using that example, and I'm going to use a counter example in a second of modesty. Because then they don't like themselves and they want to draw attention to themselves? Are they ashamed? Right? And what do we do? Shouldn't we solve that problem instead of allowing them to be ashamed and say, there's a way that you can present yourself where you don't have to do that. All right? Let me give you a counter one.
Sure, but at the same time, like, are you going to limit speech? Like, are you going to limit what people like?
Yes.
Say, don't wear that in my house. You could say don't bring that into my business.
But I'm also.
But if someone's walking on the street, they're literally allowed to be themselves, and
All right.
That's crazy. Otherwise, unless they're actually like harassing people.
You just said, would I limit speech? And I answered yes. And there's 6 people in the audience just sat up straight because they want to hear what I
said. Yes.
Yes, I did say yes, and they want to know why. Listen, they want to say why I said yes.
This is the devil.
No, this is why I said yes, because there is a modicum of respect, like it's almost like what's that? The Boy Who Crying Wolf. You can't go into a theater and yell fire and cause chaos.
Hard disagree.
You can't do that though. So that's if someone has the freedom to scream out fire or gun or whatever because they want to make everyone else afraid and they're going to sit over there and laugh.
Understand.
That's not free speech.
Yeah,
that's not free speech.
And when like someone is given no right to say fire, right, and then somebody lights the building on fire and they're not gonna like tell people because they lit the building on fire and no one yells fire, then everybody burns. You see what I'm saying? And that's like a heavy metaphor, but like also you gotta like allow for the possibility to someone scream fire and the audience to be like, no, there's not a fire, dude. You're an idiot.
Unfortunately,
be allowed to. And
I don't
stupid thing and be called dumb, and then us be smarter for that because we're not going to get fooled by that again.
But we have been fooled by it
into the darkness.
We have been fooled by it many times. I mean, there were examples like, especially right around the July 4th when people set off fireworks. You know, there were people who set off fireworks, you know, inside places. And because of the culture of our society right now, you know, it caused people to scramble and to run because they thought it was gunshots, right? People can't.
Just dangerous.
People can't. That's beside the point. But it's crazy to do something like that. People have the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
No, we don't. We don't have the freedom to do that. There are limits to our freedom. Our freedom is not. What's the word I'm looking for? Our freedom is not like, you know, a free for all.
Wait for you.
No, it's not a free for all, right? Freedom does not mean free for all, right?
No, it's respect still, but
yes,
it doesn't mean you're not allowed to do it. It means do it respectfully. Don't set off fireworks in a house. If you set off fireworks down the street with all your neighbors, okay.
Well, let me go back to the modesty thing. You know, so let's say I go to the beach, right? You know, people dress a certain way on the beach because they're on the beach. I get that. That makes total sense, right?
You put them in a car, and all of a sudden, it's a different.
No.
In a room, it's a different situation.
Depends on the room. It truly depends on the room. It truly depends on the room. Like in our community, just recently in our community, one of our local high schools has just, you know, sent out this big long list of dress code for students. You know, and I'm reading this dress code. I'm saying, why do they even have to say this, right? Don't wear pajamas to school. Don't wear you know, shoes that don't have backs to them, and that's a safety thing because you have to run. You know, you could trip, you could hurt somebody. That's a safety issue. Don't wear clothes that expose your midriff where it would cause distraction for someone else. I mean, so there's a sense of modesty there.
Can I propose a weird point? Like, as a child who went to a school with uniforms, I don't know if you guys recall, but I used to wear lots of bracelets, lots of necklaces, so much so that they made rules that said you're only allowed to wear 2 bracelets, 1 necklace. I used to do crazy things with my shoes. I don't know if you guys remember that one pair of shoes I had that was like bonkers. Okay, you know why I'm doing these?
Yeah, of course.
Because when you're limited in your freedoms and you only have so many ways to express yourself, you're going to keep pushing the boundaries as much as you can. And literally the last line of defense for these kids to express themselves is clothes.
So where's that line? You know, where's that line of modesty wind up? You know, do we keep lowering that? That's what I meant by earlier. I said in my generation, you know, we started lowering that bar. You know, that modesty, that decorum bar down. So much. Here's a kind of a weird one.
Like, what would you say about like the Muslim world and like them only allowing to show so much of their face and none of their hair? And
for the women,
yeah, would you say that like that's a good thing, limiting their freedom? Well, like, what would your gut reaction be to that?
Okay, well,
similar to mine, but in a
my gut reaction to that is probably different than a lot of other people. All right, and it's I understand that the Muslim community chooses to do that because they have so much respect for their women. They want to protect them from the gawking eyes of people that can't control
For
themselves.
your safety, ladies.
It is
This
absolutely.
is my point of maybe we should address the actual elephant in the room that guys are gawking, and we need to
Yes.
redefine masculinity instead of oppress femininity and make it into
We-
masculinity, which we've done in the past 25 years.
We need to change the men need to be a lot better men. They need to be a lot better gentlemen for sure. But that doesn't mean that someone should keep challenging that to such an extent that it causes people to say that's the norm. That's the norm. I'll give you another example that you're gonna probably and it's funny that when I look at you, a little pet peeve of mine is people wearing hats like when they're at dinner. Like they're at dinner at a restaurant and they have a hat on.
If a Jewish man wore a yarmulke.
That's a religious thing. These people wearing baseball
Why do you
caps.
assume other people don't have what they would consider religious beliefs for when, like, what are you defining other people's stuff?
So they worship the god of John Deere, or they worship the god of Nike.
You worship the god of John Deere and Nike, undoubtedly.
I think we're giving them way too much.
Talking about with sin more so.
We're giving them way too much.
I'm talking about with sin.
We're giving them way too much power. I totally disagree, and that's just my personal opinion. People can, I'm not going to go around a restaurant and say take your hat off, take your hat off, take your hat off. All right, but if I have a chance to teach someone I know and they ask me the question, what do you think about that? I'm going to tell them this is what I think about, and this is why I think that like that, right? And I'm going to let.
You want to limit free speech, so you could be able to do that, right?
I'm going to let them make their own decision up. All right, but I will limit free speech. Again, I'll go back to that point. There are certain things you just can't say.
Yeah, but what if it's?
I mean, if you say
saying it, what if somebody decides it's what you say?
okay, let's say you're getting on a plane. You're getting on a plane.
Bad road to go down.
Listen to me.
You just accept the garbage with the good, which is the whole story here. Is that we have to wade out of the Garden of Eden into toiling with the land so that we can make it fruit, right?
We do not.
We start with dirt, but then we get fruit.
We
get
do
fruit again.
We do not have to accept.
Wine that Jesus drank was from the vine that Adam planted. No,
we do not have to accept the garbage. All right.
we don't have to.
Because here's why.
As in, like, not do anything about it, but we do have to live in the reality that all reality will be timelessly toiling with good and evil.
All right, but here's a sentence that I found that I thought was kind of interesting. Respecting each other's identity and experience is essential in mirroring God's love. Respecting each other's identity and experience is essential in mirroring God's love. So I do have to, if there's a guy in a Cracker Barrel wearing a hat, God love him, man. That's what he wants to do. If he would ask me a question about, do you think I should wear a hat or not? I'm going to have a list of things saying, this is why I don't think you should, and this is, and you can accept that or not accept that. That's the loving part of me. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. That doesn't mean I have to accept it. That's my point. My point is, there is a parameters of our lives. Me personally, I think it comes back to the concept of original sin, where our body side, our prime side, our side that we kind of live in this shell, we have to be a certain way so our soul can get back to the garden, right? If we don't make sure our body is doing the right thing, our soul will never get back to the garden. Right, because we have a body and a soul, not just a body over here and a soul over there.
I'm of a completely different opinion. I think we're just our soul is the God thing that we are, and then we're just in a vessel, and
what's that vessel called?
A body, right?
And where does that body survive?
It's the material thing that we're like. It's kind of like how, if I could describe it as how ghosts will like go into a body and then become that body. Imagine souls are ghosts, and when we're born, we get a soul into this body, and then it gets to carry itself around, and it's the little energy engine that makes all the things go. And then when we die, that energy goes back into the universe and finds some other energy to go to. Does that make sense? And we're not the body.
In some context,
all.
in some context that makes sense. But I think if I'm going to follow this Christian story, that soul,
Following the Christian
no, that
story.
soul's going back.
God made us out of dust.
Listen,
He
that
said,
soul's
"You're the
going back.
dust," and then he breathed the soul into it, right? That's your story.
But that soul is going back to be with God.
And dust we
So
shall return.
I'm not going into somebody else. I'm going back to
No,
the,
you're not
to
going
garden.
into somebody else. Your soul goes back to God.
Okay.
And then gets spit out into God gets to go into some other soul. That's why you and I can recognize the God in each other, because we both have God in us. We're fractals of it. That doesn't mean we are both. I'm not God. You're not God. We collectively, this experience is, and then we have the opportunity to be the creator now too. That's God's gift to us.
Well, we definitely can create, and that was my original argument. Like, why we keep messing with that?
Well, I mean,
Is that our
I used to say,
is that our
how
human
to
side?
create. Like, I mean, I have my opinion, but that's just me in this material, surviving this material. That
Would
makes
it-
me have that opinion. That's not like a
Would it be fair to say that
eternal thing, I can say.
the tools that we were given to create are pretty obvious, right? Even in nature, the tools to recreate are pretty darn obvious, right? The flower has the pistil and what's the other part, that the pollen that can get there from the bee, and then it goes into the egg, and there's some really specific.
About the capital M masculine and capital M feminine that come out of creation, like
Yeah, I am.
yin
I am.
energy of receptive and the yang energy of aggression or energy.
Or giving. I wouldn't use aggression, but giving.
Well, no, aggression as in like penetration, as in like versus receptive.
Yeah, but see, I look at that penetration as an act of love,
like
not as a anger thing.
like inhale, exhale, Yah, Yahweh,
I get it.
right? And then nirvana literally means to exhale, so it's like when you exhale your spirit, you go back to
Got back to God, right?
right.
I can live with that. You know what I mean? All right. So what did we talk about today? Can you give us a recap of what we said? Where did we go?
I don't know. I think you didn't get to talk about what you wanted to talk about, really.
No, that's okay.
Good
It will come.
and evil isn't the right dynamic. I think it's like fear and love is the way I would do it more so. Are you afraid? Are you ashamed? Or are you, just living with shame?
Mm-hmm.
That humility.
I like that.
And then I think you said something about you don't have to like it, but you love it. I think that's a huge thing. Don't get convoluted like and love. Like is your body in the thing trying to navigate survival of, both just like nature and society and like our social nature as well. But love is you reconnecting with God.
Right. But we do that here in our shells.
Yeah, but like and love, that's your emotional reaction. That has nothing to do with love is the action and fear is the other action.
All right.
Act in fear.
My synopsis.
Taboos are
My reevaluation of this is that we have a body and a soul, and that body, that soul, is what we want to get back to God. So that's a good thing. Our soul is good because God is good, and we want to get back to God. But to do that, our body has to live a certain way to allow our soul to do that. And we, because we have separated our body and soul through the original sin, we have we struggle with that body getting it back. And I think that's where was most of our discussion, is that, how much should we allow society to get away with it, to kind of push that envelope of what's good and what I see as good and what the world sees as bad.
What you mean by get away with it? Like, get away with what? What the?
Well, I think it's that concept of getting away with pushing the envelope so far that it dilutes society, which destroys the family.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
that's my fear. That's my fear.
What's an example of that?
I think an example. I'm going back to the modest thing. An example of that is the modest thing. I have two granddaughters, and when I think of those two granddaughters, I don't want them to be taken advantage of because they think that this person, whomever that person is the model that they should follow, and that's not going to bring them down the right road. It's going to bring them down a bad road, and I want to protect them. And I know you said that we have to kind of go down the bad road so we know to be able to fight ourselves away from it. But if I can avoid that, that opportunity for them and show them a different way, I think that's a good thing too. So that's my fear. My fear is the destruction of society, right? I think that, when I think of all the dictators that want to take over, that wanted to take over the world, what did they do? They broke up the family. Because when you break up a family, you break up society.
I don't disagree with that.
And when you break up society,
I think that's a common.
And when you break up society, that's when we get in trouble, because then things become common. I'll give you a really stupid example of that. When I was growing up on TV,
on TV growing up?
No. When I was growing up and I would watch TV, I don't think I was ever on TV. Was I ever on TV? There were TV shows that would just get to a place where they wouldn't go over the top about, showing things or saying things and such like that. And then this TV show came out, NYPD Blue. And what they did was they started showing nudity in prime time, I guess what they call it. So NYPD Blue lowered the bar. It was kind of simple things, like if there was a dead body there, they'd be naked and you'd see their ass or something like that. It wasn't really like hardcore, nudity. But because that one show on that TV station did that, everyone else said, crap, we got to do that too, because they're getting more viewership than us. So we got to lower the bar. So the bar became lower. And because of that, I blame that TV show. Because of that, the viewers. The bar, because we can't control ourselves. I don't disagree with you.
Eyes go there because it was new or whatever. But if they kept going there because of that, then
that's a great
blame those people.
I don't know if we can answer that question. That's the ultimate question. We got to go upriver and find out why people do what they do. I'm not sure we could solve that one.
Yeah, we can go upriver.
But I don't know if we could solve why people do what they do.
They'll get a little into the geopolitical if we do that too.
Exactly. So we got to be careful of that. But that's kind of my take, and I think that's my example. My example of that. I was trying not to use that example, but that's the best example I have. That's when I personally experienced the bar being lowered, and then watching what was going on around the world and the bar lowering. And then all of a sudden, now we have so many opportunities on a TV to see things that the bar is really, really, really low now. I mean, the bar is really, really low. And because you can you can watch whatever you want on some of these screens. It is no age limit in terms of who can press the wrong button. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think that, and society allows that to happen, and I think that's not good. And that's freedom, yeah, but it's not freeing.
Maybe. I'll tell you a brief story. There's
All right.
this young king, and he never left the palace. And then one day he left the palace, and he
I know the story. I know the story.
Oh, do you want to finish it?
No, you go.
He left the palace, and then he saw that there was a lot of actually disease and hunger and famine and war and all these terrible things going on in the world.
Like he saw maybe a sick person and a
Yeah.
dead person. And
You know what that provoked him to do? Instead of like living his whole life in a palace, unknown of all those things, because he thought his father actually thought they might have been taboo. He ended up becoming the most enlightened person of his time. So it's almost like when you expose yourself to things that are scary and dangerous and hurtful and darkness, if you transmute that, you can find lightness and then help others become on that path to light as well.
But what was that one thing he saw out there that really made him think?
A banyan tree?
No, that was later on. That's where he became enlightened. He saw a ascetic who had nothing, who was living poor, but yet was happy. And he wanted to know why. Why is that ascetic so happy? Yeah, he saw a dead person. Yeah, he saw a sick person, right? And he questioned that. But what really drew him out of the palace is the ascetic, because the ascetic was like happy, but he didn't have everything. And he, the Buddha, thought you needed to have everything to be happy. And he found out that's not true. So I got to go find out what's going to make us happy.
Yeah, but I wasn't going to bring up the aesthetic because...
Why not?
Because I think that's the part of Buddhism people get caught in, that I'm going to sit here and meditate, the non-moving Buddha, right? Where you go to the mountaintop and then you become an ascetic, and that's only half of the journey. The other half is you come back down and then you live in the village and tell all those people. So like,
Agree.
I really don't like promoting just going off into the woods, because that only saves you, and that's almost more selfish than becoming a CEO.
So it's not the aesthetic I'm talking about. It's that the aesthetic was happy.
No, yeah, I get that. That's also kind of, good for mind control. But
All right. We've come to an end here. Our producer is pointing to us that we've gone to the time limit, to the peak. All right. That was fun. What are you going to do next week? What do you think? Where do we want to go? We want to keep walking down this path of creation. Is there something else in creation that kind of really makes you want to say, let's talk about that?
Yeah, probably.
What do you have on your notes there?
There's so much more. Well, like the punishment.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about the punishment. I hinted to that a little bit today.
Do that. Why we do that, good God?
Yeah, we could talk about the punishment. All right, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything else about that because I'll start talking about next week.
Or, other things too.
You never know where we're going to go.
But
all of it is moral and all of it is relative.
Truly.
Hence the name.
Yeah, thanks for watching. If you kept watching, appreciate you. That's Dan, I'm Charlie, and that's my mom in the corner.
Thank you very much for watching.
See you next time.
Bye.